The truth is, during World War II, millions of ordinary families quietly mastered a food system that modern households would struggle to replicate today. Not because it was complicated, but because it required discipline, patience and knowledge that has largely disappeared. Governments encouraged it, communities depended on it, and households treated it as a matter of survival rather than a hobby. This wasn't just gardening. It was a year-round production system designed to eliminate food shortages, reduce dependence on supply chains, and keep families nourished through every season. What's remarkable is that the system worked so well that at its peak, civilian gardens supplied a significant portion of fresh vegetables in some countries. Yet today, most people are never taught how it functioned, let alone how to apply it. This guide breaks it down clearly, not as nostalgia, but as a practical framework that still works right now. The wartime garden was not seasonal, but designed for continuous production. The biggest misconception today is that gardening starts in spring and ends in autumn. During World War II, that idea would have been considered wasteful. Families structured their gardens to produce food every month of the year by staggering planting times and choosing crops based on cold tolerance. Hardy vegetables like kale, cabbage, carrots and turnips were planted in waves so that something was always ready to harvest. Instead of one large planting, people worked in cycles, replanting immediately after harvest. A modern example is simple. If you plant spinach once, you get a short harvest window. But if you sow small batches every 2 weeks and combine that with cold protection, you extend your harvest for months. This is how wartime households avoided gaps in food supply. Cold frames were the backbone of winter survival gardening. Cold frames were not optional extras, they were essential infrastructure. These were low, box-like structures with transparent lids, often made from scrap wood and old glass windows. They trapped solar heat during the day and protected crops from frost at night, creating a microclimate that could sustain growth even in freezing conditions. Families used cold frames to keep greens alive throughout winter. Crops didn't grow quickly, but they stayed alive and harvestable. Today, you can replicate this with minimal effort. A wooden box, a clear plastic or glass top, and placement in a sunny, wind-sheltered area can keep lettuce and spinach growing long after outdoor crops have died. Soil health was treated as a long-term investment, not an afterthought. Wartime gardeners understood that soil determined everything. Chemical fertilizers were scarce, so composting was not optional. Kitchen scraps, garden waste, and even paper were recycled into compost piles that fed the soil continuously. Instead of depleting land with repeated planting, they rotated crops to maintain fertility. Root vegetables followed leafy greens, and legumes were used to restore nitrogen. This approach kept soil productive year after year without external inputs. You can apply this today by starting a simple compost system. Even a small bin can turn food waste into nutrient-rich soil. Over time, this reduces the need for store-bought fertilizers and improves yields. Storage and preservation, extended the harvest well beyond the growing season. The WWII garden system didn't end at harvest, not by a long shot. Storage techniques were just as important as growing methods. Root cellars, drying racks and canning. These preserve food for months on end. Carrots, potatoes and beets, for example, were stored in cool, dark conditions so they'd last right through winter. Leafy greens were eaten fresh, while any excess produce was carefully preserved. This, honestly, created a buffer against food shortages. A practical modern step, really, is learning basic preservation methods. Even if you don't have a root cellar, a cool storage area, or even a refrigerator can extend the life of root vegetables significantly. Drying herbs or freezing greens also helps maintain a steady food supply. Intercropping and space efficiency, well, these maximized every square meter. Space was often limited, especially in urban areas, so gardeners responded by growing multiple crops in the same space. Fast-growing plants like radishes were planted alongside slower crops like cabbage. By the time the cabbage needed space, the radishes had already been harvested. This method, you see, ensured no soil was left idle. It also reduced weeds and improved overall productivity. Today, this can be applied in small gardens or even containers by pairing compatible crops and planning harvest timelines carefully. Community knowledge sharing made the system stronger and more resilient. One reason the system worked so well was that knowledge was shared openly. Governments distributed guides, neighbours exchanged tips, and experienced gardeners helped beginners. This created a culture where growing food was a shared responsibility. Today, much of that knowledge is fragmented or treated as niche expertise. Rebuilding that mindset, even within a small group or online community, can make a significant difference in success rates. The system faded because convenience replaced necessity. After the war, industrial agriculture and global supply chains made food more accessible. Supermarkets replaced gardens, and convenience replaced self-sufficiency. Over time, the skills required to maintain a year-round garden were no longer passed down. The result is a population that relies heavily on external systems for food. When those systems are disrupted, the lack of knowledge becomes a serious vulnerability. The forgotten cold frame techniques that still produce greens in January are surprisingly simple. Cold frame success depended on small practical techniques that are rarely taught today. Gardeners angled the glass to capture maximum sunlight and place frames facing south to increase heat retention. They opened lids slightly on warmer days to prevent overheating and closed them tightly before nightfall to trap warmth. They used dark soil or added compost to absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night. Some even lined the inside with straw or insulating materials to reduce heat loss. Crops were chosen carefully, focusing on those that could survive near freezing temperatures without damage. Applying this today can be as simple as building a basic cold frame and experimenting with hardy greens. Even in cooler climates, this can provide fresh food during months when most gardens are dormant. This system still works today if applied with consistency and intention. The WWII garden system was not based on luck or ideal conditions. It was built on consistent effort, careful planning, and practical knowledge. Anyone willing to adopt these principles can achieve similar results, even on a small scale. Start with one element. Build a cold frame, begin composting, or try staggered planting. Over time, these practices combine into a system that produces reliable year-round food. If you found this breakdown valuable and want more deep dives into forgotten systems that still work today, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who appreciates real, practical history.